before we dive into the real episode here, we're going to do a plug for a book that we recorded after we recorded the episode, and we're going to shove that here at the top to make sure everyone hears it, and then stay tuned for the awesome episode that is forthcoming about SymbyAI.
Stephen, as probably a lot of rationalists have heard already, Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Suarez, who is head of MIRI right now, wrote a book together recently. That's
the third way I've heard Nate's last name pronounced.
What were the other two you heard?
Sories and Soars.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've heard a few as well, actually.
And, he was there, but I don't think he's wearing a name tag, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him.
I asked him about this actually specifically because we were going to record, and I was like, is it Soares? Because that's how I've heard a lot. And he's like, honestly, I'll take whatever. There's a lot of ways to pronounce it, and I'm not particularly picky. In the original, it's Suarez. And I was like, oh, really? Well, then maybe I will use that one.
Well, I like it. Yeah, no, I didn't want to ask about his last name. I just wanted to thank him for writing the Replacing Guild series.
Yeah.
But next time.
Yeah. And
although you say everyone's heard of this, I hadn't heard of it till I got there. So there was a cool stand, just table with a bunch of free booklets that I think if you pre-ordered, you could get a T-shirt as well. Mm-hmm. So Nate Soares and Eliezer Yudkowsky co-wrote a book called "If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies."
Yes, and as you can probably guess, it's about AI.
Yes, it's not about self-driving cars.
Yeah. So the thing about this book is, a few things, 3 things, in fact. The first one being, if you've been a long-time Less Wrong reader or read extensively about people's opinions on AI, you already know a lot of what is going to be said in this book. And so you're like, maybe I don't need it, which is also a thing I thought. However, they have been working on this for quite a few months. They've had many beta readers going through, helping them edit, helping them change things. And from what I have heard from people who have advanced copies, this is one of the best presentation of the arguments that they've seen. It ties in everything very seamlessly and presents it in a way that is very immediately ungrokkable to an average person, and just lays out a case in such a tight, focused way that I don't know. I'm looking forward to actually getting this and reading it, even though I already know the arguments, because it just sounds like the best presentation available at the moment.
Yeah, there's 100% something to be said for resetting something that we all know with a fresh lens. Mm-hmm. And what I've never read is a collaborative writing project by Yudkowsky and Soares.
Yeah.
I love both their writing styles. I imagine their synergy will be tight, so I'm excited just for that. And of course, the content will be, I was going to say great. The content will be very valuable.
Yes.
I don't think I'll come away from this book feeling awesome having read it, but I will read it.
Next thing about it is, this is an effort to actually push the Overton window. They wrote it for that reason. This seems to be almost the perfect time for it. This is really starting to come into the public consciousness in a pretty major way. We had an episode with John Bennett earlier about when Overton window shifts happen, and this year looks just like a prime time to actually maybe move how the government thinks about AI and how people in general think about AI and what can be done about it. So this is a great time to actually this is a great time to throw our support behind it.
Yes, and from the outside, I think people are now becoming aware of these kind of concerns in a way that they totally weren't receptive to 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so this book is timely in that fashion.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people about this sort of thing, and they're like, well, I'm just not buying it. And so rather than me try to walk them through the daisy chain of reasoning that can take, if we're going quickly, 30 minutes,
mm-hmm.
I'm like, just where do you fall off the argument? Where are you at with it? And then where do you not continue?
Yeah.
And I find that to be a nice shortcut. But, it'll be even better is handing them a very short book and saying, look, here's the whole case laid out for you. And I bet this is your third point, but it's worth pointing out that it's currently in the pre-release stage, and pre-ordering is great for broadcasting the publicity of a book.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the traditional print industry never knows how many books to print. No one ever does. You don't want to print 10 million books if only 1 million sell, right? But you don't want to print only 1,000 books if there's demand for 100,000. So one of the ways they judge how many books they're going to print is how many pre-orders they get. And the more pre-orders they get, the more they are going to print in excess of that, because this looks like it's getting a lot of buzz. It'll probably spread once it is in actual paperback form, and so we want even more out there. So if they do commit to a large print run, then they're more likely to market it and try to put it near the front of shelves. So most people know this by now because this has not been a secret and people have been talking about it for years, but pre-orders really do make a much bigger difference than just buying the book. So if you are interested at all, go pre-order.
Yes, you totally should. And I'm assuming that the URL is nice and succinct. It's got a great name. IfAnyoneBuildsIt.com.
Great. So yeah, you can go and pre-order it on IfAnyoneBuildsIt.com. You can pre-order it at Amazon as well. Just go to Amazon, type that in, and it'll pop up. There's lots of ways to pre-order this thing. And so if you're going to buy it eventually anyway, get the pre-order.
So yeah, I think everyone should grab this. I'm going to pre-order it right now, add it to my cart. Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Steven Zuber.
I'm Inyash Brodsky.
And today we have a guest with us. Asha, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello. Yes, I am Ashia Livaudais, and I am the founder of SymbyAI, a company that's using AI for scientific validation. So happy to be here, Steven and Inyash. Nice to be with you guys.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too. I guess I should say, full disclosure, I actually work at SymbyAI. Started there a few months ago, and I love it. It's great. We're doing cool stuff, and you guys are going to learn all about it. Mm-hmm. Do you want to just jump us or take us right into the deep end? What is SymbyAI? What are we doing, and how?
Yes. What is SymbyAI? I guess the bigger question is what do I actually mean when I say AI for scientific validation? So what I mean there is we are building a platform that's essentially supposed to be like a scientific operating system that includes helping folks with knowledge synthesis, the actual organization of said knowledge, and the validation of that knowledge. So what I mean is, imagine you're a researcher and you've written a paper and done all of these experiments, and you're ready to have it reviewed for a journal or a conference or whatever, what have you. What we do primarily is use AI in order to validate that the work that you're working on is of high quality. So that's not only like looking at your writing quality and thinking about like ethics and bias and whatnot, but that's also doing mathematical and statistical validation. That is looking at the data and code assets associated with those experiments to see if they match as you've described them in your paper, if we can actually use your code. That is us attempting to build a replication protocol to actually see if your work can be replicated, if it's computational mostly. Unfortunately, we can't do wet lab biology yet. Robotics coming soon, don't worry. But yeah, that whole jam. So
awesome. I guess, let's see. I forgot to ask about you as the founder and CEO. Do you have any backstory you want to volunteer? Or am I going to have to pry it out of you?
That's my first edit. No, I can provide backstory. So before starting Symby, I was a computational physicist. I did that for about 7 to 8 years. Jolly good fun. Loved it. It was great. I worked at Fermilab most recently. I've always done some sort of deep learning in relation to physics. I've generally always been on the AI for science train from school to now. So that's mostly my background, just disgruntled physicist that's tired of seeing subfields being validated by a handful of really shitty papers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I remember when we talked to, I had a Mastrioni, I think this was 2 years ago or maybe more now, on his entire thing about the breakdown of peer review. And it was shocking. Like when the replication crisis first happened, I was just blown away by how bad it was. And then seeing that it's kind of permeated through all of science, where there's p hacking, there's importance hacking, there's just outright fraud often, and it seems like such a huge intractable problem. Like, how do you get an entire institution to shape up? I like that. I think it's Spencer Greenberg is working on replicating things just at random as much as he can with his organization. But this, like, harnessing AI, I think is amazing, because this is just intellectual labor for, as much as you can get for pennies on the dollar, when compared to a human. Is this going to help with the entire breakdown of peer review that we've been having over the past few years?
Oh, yeah, that's the idea. First of all, yes, definitely love Spencer Greenberg. Love the work at Transparent Replications. It's awesome. I also am probably of the more unpopular opinion that the replication crisis that we're dealing with now and have been dealing with on record for probably the past 15 to 20 years is kind of inevitable. When you don't have a shared infrastructure in place to actually make sure that either the assets that we're building on top of or the work that we're doing is valid, it's inevitable that you will run into this huge, now kind of Byzantine system where things just are not, the canonical progress of science has been slowing. And a part of that is just because we cannot build on top of old work. But like, for instance, there's an idea that Mendel might have fudged his data, Gregor Mendel. It's not necessarily a super new thing. It's just something that we now have the tools and the scientometrics to actually put a sort of microscope on it. Same with Galileo. But he had a good reason, allegedly. But anyway,
it's
yes,
interesting.
That is definitely somewhere that we want to contribute. So a lot of our early customers are academic publishers. Not just universities, not just, we work with some federal laboratories, but for us, huge early wins were those publishers, because when it comes to being able to change the status quo in any way, even if that just means providing the technology to change the status quo, you have to go where the actual records of this research are actually being deployed for the most part. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. Should we tear down peer review? I don't think I'm as far as Adam on that. I think that it can be transformed for good. Right now, it's just not enough, right? Skimming of a paper by a subject matter expert is fine. It can catch some things, maybe like social meta, in barely even that. And there's some papers that suggest that that's not the case. But why wouldn't you use an automated system that has this entire huge knowledge corpus around it to do that work instead? Like, it makes perfect sense to me. So
that makes sense. I think if Galileo and Mendel fudge their numbers, I mean, we've since come a long way, far enough to leave whatever numbers they wrote down in the dust anyway. But there was that thing, like last year, the year before, where they figured out that, or where it came out that the proposed and accepted mechanism for Alzheimer's turned out to have just been some guy who made shit up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a decade of research.
It's happened twice, actually.
Oof.
So it happened twice. The first time was, I think the first nugget of research of that was, like about 20 years ago. But it happened again in either 2023 or 2024, separate laboratory, same fraud, in that it wasn't even particularly clever. Like Symby's system, so we use both natural language processing and computer vision, but the computer vision is for doing image analysis specifically. So that's looking for stuff that's like spliced, diced, cut up, reused without reference. Able to catch that fairly easily because the manipulation used in those images isn't particularly clever. And if you just had some system in place, even if it's not deep learning, it could be basic heuristics, you could catch a lot of this stuff. And I think that's what's most frustrating, is I see millions and billions of dollars going to stuff that's like, my niece could probably build a good enough program to catch it. She's 12. Yeah, for sure.
When you said that Galileo and Mendel were doing some fudging, if they hadn't had done that, would their research have petered out and just not advanced? Was that necessary for them?
So that's why I said that. So the jury is, let me throw up some defenses for both of these figures.
Okay.
That you make a really good point, and that's usually the point that people talk about when they bring up like Galileo probably fudging some of his data, is that he was trying to make a larger point to his contemporaries. And I think that actually bears out for what he was trying to do. And you're probably right in that the points that he were trying to make would be less clear if he had not done so, right? He was trying to get at a pattern that he realized existed. Mendel, I think it was less necessary and also less purposeful or intentional than Galileo. Like, it's to say he even fudged his data is kind of putting a lot of weight on it. He likely allowed some biases to control the way that he was recording and observing data, I think is a better way to say that. But at the end of the day, you get kind of the same thing where you perceive that there is this statistical or mathematical pattern to your work. You're trying to get your data to fit into it. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it probably does. But so there's a good point there for sure.
I don't know. I think that their discoveries were both large enough and also, much more aligned with the truth than what was believed at the time, that if they had not fudged things, it would have gone just as well, right? Like, they were still pointing at the truth, and I kind of wish they hadn't had fudged things now.
So
I think my guess, and I hadn't heard about any of this before now, but I think like Galileo, I think it's more of a pass for me just because he was working in the, by candlelight in the Eld days of early science, and we didn't have any really good scientific norms yet. Mendel gets less of a pass there because, like his contemporary was like Darwin, who did science correctly. So I think
if you're going to be pulled up in front of the church for an inquisition, the fact that you lied in your research is kind of a damning evidence, and he maybe shouldn't have given the church that particular bone, that weapon against him.
Not he's back on trial.
All right. Well, you know.
At the end of the day, right, a core tenet of science that you would at least want is that you are trying to get to some nugget of truth, right? And very specifically by fudging data, whether that's fudging through bias or fudging through intention, you are not doing that. By the very definition. So yes, ideally, honesty would be nice, but I do still think very strongly in Galileo's case because of you can only work with the system that you have, and science itself is unfortunately not just a wild, wild west of people doing really cool things on their lonesome and then coming back to the larger community and sharing. It is its own system, its own bureaucracy, its own community or community of communities with social mores and things to know and people to know and whatnot. And he was just operating within that. We can say something similarly for people today that are kind of dealing with publish or perish and prestigious journals and having to pay high cover fees for publication. And I don't think that if the science is good and if you are getting at a truth, I think that it's a more difficult conversation than just saying, all forms of argument are off. That's what I'll say. I think to say all of that, I have a soft spot for Galileo's case.
Yeah.
Mendel, like I said, I think Mendel is actually quite relatable too, because it's very easy to really see an underlying pattern that's coming along in your data and just make some assumptions or observations that just so happen to fall in line. Even if you were a little bit more consistent, that probably wouldn't have previously. To that point, right, we actually did a large-scale review of something like 3,000 or 4,000 academic papers, a large segment of them belonging to either biology or the biosciences. And the largest mistake that we found that could completely invalidate a paper was like people just mixing up the standard error versus the standard deviation in calculations. Of the something like 700-ish papers within that field that we found, anywhere from try to be, a little bit intentional with giving statistics here, but something like 40% of them had struggles with delineating between standard deviation and standard error, and it invalidated quite a large bit of them. So it's an easy mistake to make, is the point that I'm trying to get across there.
And SymbyAI would stop this sort of error.
Yeah. It's an easy one to make, but not an easy one to catch. As of now, the way that they do this is if the journal, publisher, or organization building on the work cares enough, they'll get like a forensic meta scientist to come in and look very deeply. But the emphasis there is on cares enough. It's not a convenient process.
And I would imagine a forensic scientist costs a lot of money.
Oh, for sure. Oh, it is a pretty penny, yes.
Yeah, I think Adam Mastrioni's solution to this was basically just publish all your work on blogs instead of in scientific journals, which has a lot of benefits, like making your results publicly accessible, and you can write in human English rather than scientific jargon. But it has the downside that makes it really hard to find. It'd be cool if I could just go through, if I'm looking to publish something or investigate something, I can go to the Journal of Science website and skim through the list of stuff on my topic and see if anyone's done what I'm trying to do, rather than search the entire internet. But the problem of bringing in a forensics meta scientist to check their math. It's funny, like, it's been a long time since I took a statistics class, but that sounds like an easy enough error to make. However, it sounds like one that you should be trained out of making, and the kind of thing that you double check for, like on your checklist on the wall that says, did I lock my computer, turn off the lab lights? Did I use standard error instead of standard deviation? I guess what I'm trying to say is you're surprisingly forgiving of that error when I feel like I would be more judgmental about it.
Well, it goes back to the system conversation, though. What does current training for statistical analysis in the sciences look like? Is there a gold star standard that we give to universities or other organizations that are producing today's and tomorrow's scientists and researchers that allows them to do statistical analysis that's rigorous? And the answer is kind of no. Again, this is something that you would want a researcher to find interest in that naturally. But like realistically, people are working within a system where the statistical analysis training just really isn't good. It's not that people don't want to be rigorous or want to reinvent math and reinvent it badly. It's just that a lot of folks are not naturally good at asking the question of what should I know that I probably don't know. And there's an assumption that we have a statistical strength if we're a researcher, but that's not always the case, as the research bears out. So that's the only reason that I won't call it a soft spot, but I am a little bit understanding there because I know very intimately what kind of statistical training people are and are not getting across the board. And it's real bad. But to your point though, yeah, like that's Adam's approach, right, is that post on blogs, post as often as you have an innovative thought. And while I do think that is good practice for transparency and how people are thinking about developing methodology and thinking about developing research, I do think that part of the problem that we have right now with science is that the record is so decentralized by discipline, by geography, by hell. Just because I want to publish here. I want to publish on Google Form because why not? Fuck you. And I think that actually does more harm than good. Like if you could have this sort of wrapper interface around any knowledge that's happening when it comes to research that can also be validated on the same platform, to me, that would be extraordinarily powerful for moving every discipline in the right direction. So I think that's where I differ, but I love Adam.
Oh, I do too. He's great. And I like his other stuff too. I was actually just listening to one of his recent posts earlier today.
I did talk to him about the possibility of integrating, not to give away the sauce, but of integrating blogs and scientific blogs into the Symby platform. So not necessarily just being knowledge synthesis based on papers, right, on Archive or on Semantic Scholar or from Nature or wherever, but how do we take the knowledge that exists on places like Twitter threads about science or blogs and actually have them structured in a way that we can use and build on top of? There's a bunch of information just hidden away. How do we actually get it in one place is, I think, a good question. But
okay, what does that mean? Because I actually don't know anything about SymbyAI. I'm coming into this conversation much more ignorant than I usually am on our episodes.
No worries.
But I had the impression that it was something that would take a paper or a study and go through it for, finding errors, finding things that were not done correctly, and reporting on those. What do you mean that it would take a blog and integrate it into the knowledge base? Is SymbyAI like a database as well?
Yes, that's actually a very good question and a place to definitely clarify. We are not going to look at take in blogs to also validate those. What I mean is, yes, SymbyAI kind of also functions as a database or has this huge knowledge graph underneath that allows us to provide context for how your paper actually holds up to the rest of the literature. So for instance, in order for us to actually tell you that this statement that you made in paragraph 2 seems like bullshit, maybe check it out, we actually have to know what the literature is saying. In order for us to say that you've used this graph or chart or image without referencing this initial paper that we found it in, we actually have to know that paper exists. We have to know about your references to see if they're relevant to you. So we have this huge corpus of internal data that we worked with a bunch of human scientists to flag for issues. A lot of it is like manually annotated, not the whole thing, just because the size of scientific knowledge online is massive. But that actually helps us build on top of that. So it's not just, we have these cool LLMs and we have this cool computer vision system. It's more importantly, the data that they're built on is like fairly massive. So it's also a platform for people to, again, for knowledge synthesis. So outside of just using AI for validating your own paper, you can look at other papers and run our validator on those. You can try to develop replication protocols for a paper that caught your eye. If we have it ingested, and if we don't have it ingested, we'll do it for you. So yeah, it also covers just like being a one-stop shop record of knowledge. It's kind of the idea.
So in the ideal end state, it's kind of building a mind that would know all of science, and if you throw a paper against it, it can say where it doesn't match all of the currently known science.
Absolutely, yes. We internally, the two research brains of the team right now internally call it the science brain. We want it to be the science brain specifically.
Damn.
And as far as papers, you can also, once you submit your paper, you can just highlight a couple claims in your paper, like a sentence or two, and just throw that against the corpus of science and say, does this jive with the rest of the scientific edifice on the subject? I wonder, it seems like down the road, and this is something I guess I haven't considered, Asha, if we could just like make this well, that actually is, all right, let me get this thought out. I was going to say that sounds like way too far down the road or a bit of a pivot, but have an interface on the website where you can just ask questions and it can just barf back answers. Well, not barf them back so much, just process them and run them against everything that it knows. And so you can be, whatever,
No, I like barking. That's great. Yeah, I think of it as barking too. No, you're fine. I think that's actually pretty. I think that's a less far along than you think.
I guess, yeah, it's not so much that it would be far along, because it sounds like it would be right up there with like the, calls we would make to ask about 2 lines in the paper or something.
Yeah.
But it's nothing. It's something we haven't discussed. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's something that hasn't been discussed, but it's probably closer than you think. Another thing, like when it comes to thinking far along, we're trying to talk to robotics companies right now. Because if you want to be the science brain, like why stop at this dimension? Right? Why can't we be one of the first that are in the embodied AI space when it comes to making labs more modular or easy to maintain? So there's a bunch of interesting questions that I think we can ask now, even if we don't necessarily have the infrastructure to build on top of it or build it immediately, i.e. robotics. Like we don't have a robotics team, but
I have a. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, okay, quickly about the let's come back to the robotics thing, but quickly about the blog thing, but it doesn't have the capability right now to read a blog and analyze it the same way it would a scientific paper?
Not currently. We're actually a pretty young company. We're only like 18 months old, including the major part of the model-specific research and development time. So that is something that it's more so considered an upcoming feature rather than something that we currently have on deck. But we consider it pretty pertinent.
I remember when Steven got hired and he was like, dude, I'm employee number 6. Like, single digit number of employee.
Yes, correct.
5 or 6,
Were you number 6? Holy crap.
I think I was 5.
Oh, 5?
Yeah, I think you might have been 5.
Nice.
Yes,
but
even young. We're a baby.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a mere 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is not, what am I trying to say, hardened and finished technology yet. I did want to ask a couple questions, and I think I forgot one. One of them was, you said that we've run through like 700 papers in biology and found, like we talked about the error with their math. Were those run through the SymbyAI platform?
Yes, we used the initial so both initial Symby models to do that work. And we had, I think that one probably had, I believe, 133 folk from the Scientific Advisory Council. So context for listeners, we have a Scientific Advisory Council of something like 400, lower 400 number of researchers across disciplines that help us with evaluations of our work to make sure that our models are going in the right direction. Also early feature users, waitlist users, et cetera, et cetera. So we used about 133 of them, I believe, maybe some 100 to 150 folk to do human evaluations as well. But yes, the primary work for building like the replication protocols, trying to look at assets, looking through and doing the initial review was with the early Symby models. So both the early large language model and the early computer vision model that we use, which is still the same one that we use. But yes.
Huh. And I mean, that's context for me too. I didn't actually know about that, and I work here. So
incredible. I love that.
That's awesome.
I have a question about the model that you're running. Are you using one of the llamas? Are you working off Claude or GPT? Like, what's the backbone?
So we do use like black box, if you want to call them that, embedding models. So we use OpenAI's embedding or Cohere. Right now, we're investigating using Quinn. So the current Symby model, I'll call it, that I was just talking about that we used to do that large scale review was a very specific architecture that wasn't necessarily built from any of the open source or closed source models. It was me and a couple other folks saying, okay, let's write this in C++, because at the time, quantization, so that's making models small and performant, wasn't exactly where we wanted it to be. So we took the transformer architecture and just translated it to C++, and added some layers to do things like differential privacy and return transparency scores, or confidence scores, rather. So that's what we were running then. For updating the Symby model, we are looking at some more powerful open source solutions like Quinn, Quinn 3 especially, from the OCR, but also to the review and application portion, just because it's come so much further in being super performant without like breaking the bank on the amount of compute resources that you actually need to run a lot of this stuff. So that was my concern then. How can we make a small model that like kicks the hell out of humans at least? I think we were able to get that, but we could probably go even further. So
Quinn, who has Quinn? I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh yes, I think Quinn is. I think it's Alibaba. Yeah, it is an Alibaba model.
I didn't know Alibaba had their own model.
Yes, they have Team Quinn, and they've released a series of pretty impressive large language models.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go with that one?
Looking at the tasks that we had, we wanted to see which large language model was again, going to allow us to be small but mighty. So not going to eat up all your resources, but still we get the answers that we want and not, maybe some dogs are blue because iron, which is a stock response that we used to get from a very poor open source model that we tried out that I shan't name. But also, open source. We don't want to use closed source models. I legally, based on our contracts, to be honest with you, can't use closed source models for a lot of the stuff that we do. Okay. So it was basically looking at who is kind of top dog when it comes to open source, and Quinn is up there pretty frequently for most tasks.
Wait, what can't we use closed source models for? Any of this? Anything? Or just like OCR?
Oh, no, we can't use closed source models for like the review, the replication, production of assets, etc. When it comes to using OpenAI's embedding models, that's fine.
See, I thought that we were, and I guess, so OCR is optical character recognition. That's basically, tell me if I'm on base here, grabbing a PDF or a picture of words and turning that into words that are searchable.
Yes.
So are we not using like the AI that you built for our final platform? We're using like a mesh of open source ones?
We will likely be using some open source model as a base and sticking with our original computer vision system. So for image analysis, in our experimentation, somebody else could have a different, but thus far, vision language models don't really outperform like traditional computer vision systems like CNN, for instance. So we'll still use literally the same model with some refinements because we have more data to train it now. But when it comes to the large language model portion, we're likely going to try to upgrade and fine-tune an open source models architecture just because it's so much better, with some tweaks to take over the ideas of like privacy and hashing features. And returning confidence scores. But yeah, like for OCR, that's an open source model. That's actually Quinn, I think, Quinn 3. Or maybe it's Quinn 2.5. It's one of the Quins that's on OCR right now.
You said you can't use the closed model for legal reasons? Can you say why?
Yeah, so we were able to net some pretty huge contracts pretty early on in our life. And a part of us being able to do that was probably having more answers about what we're actually going to do with their data than we would be able to have if we use those closed source models. So part of our software license agreement, it very clearly states, we will at all times be able to tell you what is happening with your input data and where it is going. And in order for us to do that, we simply cannot use closed source models because we would not be able to make honest on that promise. So yeah, legally, like we cannot use them.
Okay. And the performance trade-off is, I would assume worth it for people who don't want their data to get into the hands of, Anthropic or OpenAI or whoever the heck else would be getting it.
For sure. And I think at this point, I don't think this is a hot take. Maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on it. Don't quote me on it. I think it's just, you know what? Yeah, quote me. I don't give a damn. But I think that the performance difference between open source and closed source, at least for the tasks that we have, is not so drastic. Mm-hmm. On some tasks, I would say it is damn near non-existent.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the SymbyAI, the AI at the middle of our platform that tells you if your paper is good or not, that's going to be an open source one?
It is going to be we're going to use the same architecture as like a Quinn, for instance, so an open source model, fine tune it specifically for Symby's purposes, and add onto the architecture for doing stuff like ensuring privacy of features and returning confidence, basically. So an open source model with some tweaks.
Okay. See, I thought it was the one that you wrote like last year.
If we, from our experiments, once we've actually done that, see that the performance isn't drastically different, I really hope it is different. Like that would be kind of disappointing if we've got these new sort of pimped out models and they just aren't as good as we thought on these tasks. If the performance difference is not the same, then we'll just use the same, like very old at this point model. But hopefully it is different. I would like to see better performance if possible.
So how well does this work when you test it on like real studies that are out there?
Yeah, so we've tested kind of two things. The first thing that we wanted to experiment with was how does this AI reviewer actually work, or AI auditor, let's call it that. How does the AI auditor work in terms of quality when compared to humans? What we've seen is that generally you will so we did this another large scale review, as we call them, where we looked at a set of thousands of papers across some disciplines, and we had some people come in to play reviewers. So we gave them a handful of papers to review, and meta reviewers, where we asked them to score the human reviewers and the AI. What we found is one, the meta reviewers actually weren't able to tell Symby output from humans apart very well. When they did start to try to guess with a little bit more pizzazz, they actually ended up guessing that Symby reviews were human more so. But I think if I can go meta, it's because they were guessing that the higher quality reviews were coming from humans when they were not. So what we found is that at the time, Symby scored slightly better than humans. The best scores that we got consistently were the use of Symby with a human. So a human augmented system, essentially, is going to give you your best output. I'm curious to try that again. I think that with some newer approaches, we can probably blow human scores out of the water. But it does pretty well on the review portion. Like I said, at least when compared to on the replication portion, we found that it also does pretty well because we're able to look. We take kind of a different approach to replication. Instead of thinking about, okay, I give system this paper and it reads the paper and it says, okay, now I'll develop a plan to replicate this thing from top to bottom. We tell our system to think about paper replication in terms of like point reduction. And so, or point reproductions. And so what I mean by that is we take a paper, we say, before you start planning anything, look at the math, try to reproduce it in code, look at the data, the properties of that data. If it's available, try to reproduce that you can verify the properties of that data in code. If it doesn't, try to simulate it. Look at these different points of the paper first and see if you can find the literature that it's built upon, reproduce some of their items. Having that bank of reproductions of all the nitty-gritty meat and details or meat and potatoes in the paper allows us to make much better progress when it comes to actually replicating the thing. So that's another thing that we've had some human reviewers evaluate previously, like how we're actually doing the reproductions. And it does pretty damn well, which is kind of the mind-blowing thing that this doesn't really exist robustly anywhere yet. It's not... Is it a technical challenge to build? Yes. Is it such a technical challenge that it shouldn't be considered damn near an integral part of the review and research deployment process everywhere? No.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope that answers the question. I went on a little bit of a tangent, my bad.
Yeah, no. So this is going to be, in large part, a tool that really anyone who's publishing should be using before they publish to make sure that everything checks out before they try to push this to the public.
Yeah, before you publish, when you're submitting, if you are any sort of researcher that's building on top of other research, so any researcher, yes, you should use it. Or you should have some curiosity to use it to make sure that you're not in the Alzheimer's situation where we have 17 years of research based on 5 faulty papers with some shitty images.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, maybe if you're building on prior research, run everything that you're going to be basing your current research on through this as well to make sure that the thing you're basing your research on is actually real.
Indeed. Indubitably. And the cool thing about it right now is that like we'll take a cascade approach where let's say you're writing some paper and you have the references, we'll look through your references too. If we have them ingested, if they're on like Archive, for instance, or Semantic Scholar, we'll try to ingest them and look at them for you. But yeah.
I used to listen to The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe a whole lot, and perhaps one of the primary recurring themes of that show, which I ended up just calling it like the Science Journalism is Horrible show, because every single episode was like, here's something that was reported, and here's what the actual science is, which is nothing like what was reported. Would this be of any use to science journalists as well, so that it can tell them what's actually in the report rather than just whatever the heck they read from the top line and abstract and fit into their fantasies?
Absolutely.
Only if they want to be helped.
Right.
Period. That's exactly what I was about to say. I just read something recently where I was able to reach out directly. I pretty much just ran into them at an event here in Austin, but I was able to reach out directly to somebody that wrote something that is incredibly sensationalist. And I know it is because I work with the person whose research that they are reporting on. And you would be surprised, right? There's attitudes where people don't want to be helped. But one of the ends that we actually try to take with our marketing, it's funny that you mentioned this, is basically sweetening the deal. So we never end a marketing outreach email without making some sort of offering to the journalist. And usually that offering is like, here's the juicy tidbit of information that you want. Here is a tangible way for you to play with it in like a month or so. So for instance, here's some limited access to the platform, or here's this integrity table that ranks journals, and you'll be surprised who ends up at number 1. So yes, it definitely is something that would be aimed at science journalists as well. They have to want to use it though. Sensationalism definitely pays, I think.
Yeah. All right. If I'm going to be surprised, who ends up at number 1? Or is that a trade secret?
Ooh, I don't think I should say.
Okay.
I won't do anything with journal ranking specifically because I don't want to die.
Oh, damn.
Maybe it's not that serious. I doubt that they have the goons, the academic publishing goons, just yet. But hey, you never know. These are billion-dollar businesses.
I was gonna say it's probably lesswrong.com, but you said it doesn't read blogs.
Oh God, I do not want the rationalists after me for sure.
Oh yes, they're vicious.
No, God, no! Please don't send the goon.
I was thinking number one in terms of integrity. You were thinking number one. You were saying number one in terms of non-integrity.
Oh yes. So people want to know who's fucking up, not necessarily.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, see, I would totally want to know who's the best so that I could go with them. But yeah, I guess there's a strong instinct for vengeance too.
Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. You as a researcher would generally be curious who's the best, but you're probably still going to go with the prestige journal. If we're reaching out to the journalists, they're interested in who's doing the worst. And a few of the names that are actually doing pretty poorly, I think would go against the idea of the need for a prestige journal. Let me say that.
So I know you can't actually tell us the name of this journal, but why were you so surprised? What's going on that came up in your data that they were much worse as a prestige journal than you expected?
So there were definitely more than one of these, but one word prestige journal in particular that is, I think, creme de la creme when you think about journals that can make your career as a researcher, performed very poorly post 2015 specifically, in basically every metric that we test for. So that's replicability and reducibility. That is just the general quality of the work, availability of assets, the truth behind those assets, and also in terms of, does the paper have any sort of invalidating errors? So we were able to distinguish pretty well between what is fraud, or what does fraud look like, and what do errors look like, but we put it all kind of under the banner of invalidating error for this particular paper. And post 2015, they were likely acquired. And after that acquisition, you can just see the quality kind of drop on every metric. So that's something that really shocked the hell out of me, just how poorly this journal that, again, makes careers was actually performing in comparison to some, middling or mid-tier journals across disciplines. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Is there any lesser known journal that if anything comes to mind that just really stood out that surprised you?
Ooh, lesser known journals that stood out. So I'll actually won't mention lesser known journals and mention disciplines.
Okay. In terms of high quality, right?
Yeah, we gotta give it up for environmental science. They're actually doing good work over there.
Oh, nice.
The environmental science folk that are experimental, they're out in the field doing it. I support them because it seems like every journal that I was looking at, whether it's a major environmental science venue or a small venue, was doing pretty darn well. So I was super surprised by that. And one could question maybe it's just because there's less literature compared to something like biology. Unlikely, because we did have some disciplines that are also smaller, like entomology, that I wish the performance was better as somebody that considers herself an amateur entomologist, but it wasn't very good. So yeah, I think that was the most surprising, just seeing that environmental science was so strong across the board. It seemed like that's geology. Awesome. You got to give it up for the geologists too. I guess it's just folk that touch grass.
Touch grass.
If you touch grass, you're probably doing good work. It's kind of what I took from this.
I think the environmental scientists, I think their well is a bit poisoned because people think of environmental impact studies they have to do to get any sort of construction done, and those all suck. And so they hear environmental impact study and environmental science, and I think maybe they equate them, or at least I do, or I did. Now I won't.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't deserve that. Right. That is one avenue in an entire well of discipline that's doing pretty well. So don't let the eco-hydrologists suffer because of environmental impact studies, for instance.
So I'm trying to think of, so let's see, we're going to air this episode in early June, and we won't be launched yet, but we'll be about ready to launch. People can go to SymbyAI.com and check out the current state of things. But when we're launched, what features can people expect on launch day? Yeah,
so on launch day, we'll have pretty much the entirety of the base of the platform, which includes the ability for users to log on, upload their document, use our AI validation and review system, build replication protocol, save those assets to directories on the SymbyAI platform, along with looking at other papers and seeing kind of how they pass muster, if they do. So yeah, the cool features, I'll say. There are some other features that we're going to build along the line, like getting more detailed knowledge graphs of information, but we don't really consider those like core features. We're going to look into hypothesis generation, look into having organization profiles that are open and you don't have to get them just do an enterprise plan. But yeah, all of the interesting tidbits of actually running paper validation, running research validation, getting replication stuff out, we'll have it for you.
Okay, I leaves me with a couple questions. The first one is that jumps to mind. So you were talking earlier about the robotic space and why stop at whatever bits when we can start moving atoms. If we've got robots and hypothesis generation, are we going to just completely usurp everyone with the word scientist in their job description?
No. No, that is not the plan. So I really
it might not be the plan, but will that be a consequence?
I said that as suspiciously as possible. That is not in the plan. That's on the cards. I think it's actually good to go back to what I mentioned from the papers that I found, right, about the social dynamics of using AI in review. You generally get the best results, and this isn't just for AI in review. I've looked at so many papers at this point, right, of using deep learning or artificial intelligence to augment human performance. And generally, when it comes to knowledge tasks, augmenting the human seems to be a better goal than outright replacement of the human if it comes to doing something at a higher caliber or at a higher quality. And so for us, the goal would be, how can we build some sort of embodied artificial intelligence system that is useful for creating a lab space where we're augmenting the actual process of developing research? That's really the question that we want to answer. I'm not interested in replacing anybody with scientist in their name, because maybe I want to be a physicist at some point. Stop trying to put me out of a job, Stephen.
Well, I mean, I think all of our jobs their days are numbered, maybe, depending on how far these technologies come. But hopefully the hard sciences will be left for you. We'll see.
That's okay.
You mentioned, too, being able to browse papers. Are those ones that have been uploaded by other users? Are those public ones, like you said, from Archive or Semantic Scholar?
Yeah, it's mostly going to be papers that are public and open access. So,
and they'll just be able to access them directly through our platform. We won't just send them a link to go to check them out somewhere else.
Yeah, directly on the platform.
Neat.
If it's something that we don't have ingested, for instance, because we'll start with ingesting maybe weekly, getting into technical details that people don't care about, we'll have a feature where they're essentially able to give us the link to like an archive paper, or preprint rather, or a Semantic Scholar paper, and we can ingest the PDF from there and do our little dance so that they are able to add it to the platform if it doesn't already exist there.
Are you going to try to ingest all of archive.org, the one spelled with an X?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, continuously. So it's not as large as you think. There's not as much data on Archive as you think. All of Archive is actually consistently updated on a Kaggle data set.
On the what data set?
So there's this website called Kaggle. Okay. I think Google runs it, where you go to do like machine learning competitions, essentially like little online machine learning competitions. It's also a good, like one of the primary resources that people will point you to when you're first trying to learn machine learning or artificial intelligence and you want to get your hands dirty with like a project. If you've heard of like the very popular Titanic project for learning machine learning, they're probably going to send you a Kaggle link to go figure out how to do that. But Archive actually has a data set on Kaggle that contains the entirety of the metadata and also access to the Google Bucket link that gives you the entirety of Archive's data. I think so. The metadata for Archive alone, I think most recently is something like nearly 5 gigabytes. That's all the metadata for all the Archive preprints that currently exist. 5 gigabytes of metadata is so little. Just to be clear there, and I think the Archive Google Bucket that actually has the PDFs might be some multiple, maybe 50 gigs. It's small.
I didn't realize it was that small.
Yeah, that's smaller than many of our personal movie libraries.
Indeed. It's still very impressive, right? That the disciplines that do use Archive were able to get it to, I think it's probably something like 2 million to 3 million papers now. But just for reference, Semantic Scholar is 300 million papers. Okay. And it's still not super large when it comes to like data storage. So ingesting the entirety of Archive is definitely not a huge ask. Ingesting the entirety of available online scientific literature is less data than you would think overall.
Is there... Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
I was going to say that as far as, because I compared it to the size of movies, and I was thinking that I watched a TV show earlier that was over 5 gigs, and it was like a 55-minute TV episode. But it's, text and PDFs are way smaller data bytes than, or bytes of data to chomp into than movies. Like, I think all of Wikipedia is 50 something gigs, and that's if you want all of the linked information, including the videos and embedded images and all that. So
nice. Text is super easy compared to however many frames of high res per second.
Exactly. Want to be able to count the whatever stubble on John Hamm's chin. So
right.
Haven't we all? The hard thing is just parsing the information. It's super easy to just save the PDFs, but for us, the computationally expensive thing is always going to be, okay, we have this PDF. How do we actually get information out of it? Like, how do we structure the metadata for this PDF? How do we chunk this into these little bite-sized pieces that we can feed to our model without like having it explode on us? This is particularly difficult.
This is probably a really boring question, but I've never had a chance to talk to somebody in your position before. Where do you get your compute from? I'm assuming you aren't actually buying the high-end NVIDIA chips. Are you renting from like AWS or something?
Oh, no. We generally use Lambda Labs.
Okay.
So for early experiments, we use Lambda Labs for like doing any sort of fine-tuning, training, big data ingestion, etc. Lambda Labs is kind of like a Google Cloud platform, but scaled down for everything that you need to kind of serve and work with machine learning stuff. So it's very cool and very convenient. Right now, we use Google Cloud Platform mostly, though. And we still use Lambda, but we just serve models there. So that means we build the technology, and then if we need to use the model for something, we have a link that Lambda Labs gives us that allows us to use our model in the platform. We also raise money. So let me throw that out there. We did recently have a like $2 million ish fundraise, and that really did the trick too. So between grants, fundraising, and all that good stuff, it generally covers the cost.
Awesome. I think I'm running low on questions. Do you have more, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what direction to take this in. I think that, you said that this is the technical details that no one cares about. Like our audience is nerdy AF, at least as nerdy as we are. I think some of this might be of interest to them, like the nitty gritty of how some of this stuff works. But obviously, we don't want to give away like trade secrets, so I'm not sure what the line is to walk there.
I actually don't mind giving away trade secrets when sequence. Oh my god, not the jumping out.
That's all right. We can clean that up with the magic of editing.
Oh, it's fine.
That's our trade secret.
Right.
Leave it in. I actually don't mind giving away any sort of technical trade secrets. Like whenever I'm pitching anywhere, or just talking about Symby anywhere, trust me, I'm giving away the sauce. The only thing that I kind of err on the side of is, like, for instance, if we do some research and it's particularly pointed at an individual or entity or an organization. But other than that, open book.
Right on. In that case, have you covered everything that you cover in the sales pitch when you're talking to, I don't know, a would-be like prospective investor or customer?
Oh gosh, yeah, and you don't want me to do that. You don't want me to cover everything there. It's like, you want to know our historical financials? Probably.
Oh, I guess probably not that. Yeah, you mentioned that we have like fundraising, but also like early access customers. I think it's worth just mentioning that that's extremely rare for startups these days to get paid contracts from people that they're before we're launched and they can use our product.
Oh yes, it's extremely rare. Yeah.
Who can you say who some of those people are?
I cannot. I can gesture toward them. One of them is, a couple of them are kind of cream of the crop in their respective disciplines when it comes to publishing at a subset of journals. So these are larger publishers rather than like one journal here and one journal there. Kind of like Springer Nature is not actually just Nature, it's Nature Communications and Blase, this one and that one and whatnot. And another one is like a pretty well-known hardware company that builds resources for doing deep learning work. So you could probably put that together. Not too many of those. But we've got an interesting gamut of customers for sure. A few of them, especially the early ones, were knowing a familiar face and having worked on them with cool stuff in the past. And so them taking another leap of faith on me now, which I super appreciate. But yeah, it just kind of sells itself. Like I mentioned earlier, this is one of those things where the fact that something like this, when it comes to the AI auditor, when it comes to the technical infrastructure, just generally the fact that something like it doesn't exist in a robust format already is kind of criminal. So I think that for us, sales is like the easiest thing in the world. It basically sells itself. So we're super lucky there.
That's awesome.
How long until not having a link to the SymbyAI evaluation of your study is as bad as not having p-values in it?
Now you're thinking. Now you're talking. Hey, don't give it away. No, that that is the goal. Yes.
Yeah.
We really look up to like Hugging Face and what they've done for machine learning, where if you are developing open source models, I will likely expect that you have a Hugging Face link where I can play with your model really quickly in a containerized environment in my browser. Very cool stuff. We could literally do the same thing for research. So yes, that is one of the goals, where it is almost an expectation that you have some Symby related link for your paper or for your experiments that you can share with people. So see, you see the vision.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, just having something that can verifiably say, yeah, this checks out is going to be huge. Like, so many times you just find out years later that someone copy pasted like an Excel spreadsheet, and maybe they grabbed the wrong spreadsheet or something and nobody noticed, and it ruins everything.
All the time. I was just reading a journal article
editing magic
about like the demographic breakdown of witches. That was when I went to go look at the initial data, which has been scanned online. It was likely a scanner error that allowed the actual article to translate the outcomes that they did in the way that they did. Yeah. If I had to guess.
And SymbyAI would catch that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep. It wouldn't happen. One avenue that we're actually looking at that I find interesting, this is like meta conversation stuff. Feel free to cut it if not. I don't want to take up all of you guys' time. Misinformation think tanks. So right now, when it comes to like misinformation catching that you see on insert social media platform here, or even for live events, a lot of that is just like contracted out to individual humans to look for the misinformation. But that's something that you could definitely have a plug and play system do that for you and probably get better quality. So yeah, definitely something that we're looking at.
Awesome. So you're going live, going public, like officially launching sometime in June, it sounds like?
Yes, June.
Okay. And how much does it cost to use this service?
We're a pretty cheap platform. $10 a month for individual users.
Nice.
I can't believe that's still the price.
That is still the price. Get in soon.
I thought that was yeah. I think that's actually probably a good idea. Get an account now and try and lock in your rate, because I thought that was the placeholder number when I joined the company on the website, but apparently it's the real one.
Oh yes, that is the real number. Get in soon while you can now. Since a lot of our early contract focus was on these big enterprise players, they're kind of individual users are kind of being subsidized, but yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm trying to think of, I guess we could dig more technical or just kind of more maybe zoom out a bit. Like, what made you have the idea to build this project as opposed to something else? Was, were you burned by a bad science paper?
Listen to too much Skeptics Guide to the Galaxy, North of the Universe.
I was attempting to do some cool work. This is back in the day. I had got pulled into a project where we were investigating methods for running particle accelerators autonomously. So how do you take these big behemoths, and instead of having all of this sort of complex standard for running them or actually getting them to do things, how do you damn near automate that process? Huge task. Bunch of people from various labs involved. But what I found as I started investigating some of the literature and what other people were finding, and I was having to kind of probe them to be honest about it at some point, was that a large part of what existed was basically invalid. And it could be invalid because there was missing code or data, and when you tried to simulate it, it didn't work. The data or code that existed was shitty and or did not, didn't allow you to work. What does exist only really works in a particular environment at a particular time, and even that lab can't reproduce the work. We just ran into a bunch of problems. And it got to the point where when you run into the 50th paper that is built on a foundation of code and math, and there's no code and shaky cam math being done, you start thinking, gee, what's going on? And so that experience really emboldened me and a few other people to kind of temporarily get interested in the economics of science. And we just found that something like $2 trillion is spent globally on R&D spending every year. A significant portion of that is aimed at work that is not going to go anywhere. That could be because it's fraudulent. Unlikely, like I said. Fraud is actually pretty rare. It could be because it's invalid. Likely. It could just be because nobody's going to pick it up and do anything with it because it's so niche or doesn't really feed into a grander plan. But when I saw that, I was immediately thinking there is nothing better for me to do than to do Symby, essentially. So I quit, probably not in the best way possible to quit a job. And I just decided I was going to live in a van and build Symby. The van, I did get the van. Living in it was definitely a thing. But then my co-founder at the time actually sort of introduced the idea of startups to me. Both of my parents are like serial entrepreneurs, professional hustlers, professional hustler type beat. So I knew
it's very different than serial entrepreneur.
Indeed, well,
it's a different connotation.
Yeah, something like that. So I never thought that I would do it just because it didn't look particularly attractive to me. But so I didn't know about startups at all. I always tell people before November of 2023, I would not be able to tell you what like Y Combinator was. My co-founder actually introduced the idea to me, and so I started reading about it. Decided, okay, maybe I don't have to be a broke boy for the rest of my life, and can still build something cool. So here I am today.
Awesome.
As far as that goes, I mean, but there's a lot of people who aspire to have their own successful startup. I guess we haven't delivered, but we've successfully gotten this far and gotten a lot of interest and traction, right? So I'd say SymbyAI is successful so far.
No question mark. It's even damn.
What I'm trying to say is I don't want to sound biased because I work there. I think we're crushing it, but obviously I would say that. Okay, so gotcha. I think objectively we're doing well. Do you have, or are there like any? I don't. This is like seems like a trite question, but like any advice for aspiring young entrepreneurs who want to, well, not to be young, but you know what I mean, fresh entrepreneurship, who want to get their own thing going? Do you have advice that like, oh yes, I wish I learned this, 3 years ago or 2?
I have a couple of points of advice. The first is, if you are a masochist, this is the perfect thing for you to do. Like, if you're the kind of person that wakes up in the morning and says, damn, I love to suffer, this is perfect for you. So a serious way to actually translate that is, you're going to get a lot of rejection, a lot of people pulling your leg, more than you're probably used to, especially if you're not coming from the world of business, quotation marks, more conflicting advice than you're used to getting. Get used to the idea of no and being a really fast acting filter. I would say before you do anything related to entrepreneurship, I suppose, but especially startups, really hone in, like, how can you cultivate a good filter that tells you when somebody is BSing you or not, or when you just don't need to do something, or when you just don't need to take the check that somebody's trying to give you. You have to be really good at saying no, actually. I think is probably something that is more important. Assuming that you have a good application and people are actually trying to give you money and talk to you. That's a caveat.
Nice.
I guess another thing would be, when I first started startup stuff, I had the tendency to possibly underestimate myself and think that everyone likely had some grand system in place for making the decisions that they made. But I quickly found out that that was not the case. And if you just take a moment to systematize what you're doing, you can probably get very far. So much so that I don't think that there's anybody that you cannot touch. Meaning, if you want to get in contact with insert brand name here, you probably can if you take a couple days, couple weeks to actually think about how to get to that person. It's very strange. Like, I always have to remind people that I was living in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, up until very recently. So some of the conversations that I've been able to have definitely blown my mind.
I come from a similar background to you, where my parents started with very little and built their own business up from the ground, and very much the same kind of spirit of, when you're doing this, you don't spend any money you don't have to. You save up all the money, you self-finance, you mortgage your house, you take personal risks, and it takes decades to grow a business like that. But boy, it certainly works, and it seems to be how humans have mostly done it throughout history. And then when you run into startup culture, and it's so drastically different, and it goes a lot faster, but also it just feels a lot less stable. I don't know. What is your opinion on traditional entrepreneurship, where you own a thing yourself and take a lot of debt and go slow, versus startup culture?
So this is one of those things where perhaps it's a hot take, but seeing the two worlds as well, traditional business seems a lot braver. I think you can do a startup and be smart. You see all of these sort of damning statistics about the ability of startups to actually be successful and long-standing. And while those statistics have a lot of merit, I do think, now that I have a little bit more of an insight into how people are making decisions, again, people are just making bad decisions. That if you think about it and plan for a moment, you don't have to make. There are ways that you can raise $2 million and not run out of $2 million in 3 months. It's actually quite simple. But I think a lot of what happens is, and I've experienced it as well, there's so much conflicting information from a lot of people who seem very trustworthy and probably have been around the block, and not all of it is going to work for your scenario. And so I think that's actually what happens in startup culture. You raise this money, if you do raise, right? That's part of startup culture. And because there is all this information about growth, 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 and now, there's this idea that you have to spend the money, and you really don't. You can be systematic about how you're actually conducting yourself. And I think that when you hear the message of growth, that kind of goes out of the window. Like, for instance, Symby doesn't need the same amount of engineers as Microsoft. Like, we're doing pretty well with the engineering team of 5 people that we have, the 2 researchers that we have, the 1 operations person that we have. You can get really far on a small team. And so that seems probably more frightening than people make it out to be. Whereas traditional business, like, you really have to scrap. When I was, they were professional hustlers, let me be clear, which is a little different from traditional entrepreneurship. But when they did try their hand at traditional entrepreneurship, I watched my parents give away quite a bit in order to just make something shake, right? To start the business, to actually get the prototypes out to say that the idea or the business could actually be successful in the first place, which I didn't really have to do that. I wanted to live in a van to save money. I didn't have to. Right. First year, we raised some money enough that would have sustained me and my then co-founder for a couple years. We didn't really have to do the same song and dance that I see people having to do for like traditional entrepreneurship and bootstrapping, as the kids call it, which is much scarier to me. Even the term bootstrapping is just very ominous.
What happens when I run out of boot?
Yeah, my boots are small and I don't have straps on them. Like, what do I do? But yeah, that's kind of the difference that I see.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, and I'm glad that you shined light on it. You know, I hadn't really thought of the question to myself that way of like comparing traditional entrepreneurship to startup culture, because startup culture has this whole thing of like, let's get as much money as we can and fail fast if it's going to fail. And you know, the way that your parents did it was not a fail fast mentality.
Right.
It was no, we're not going to just like run out of money and give up and try something new the second that we hit a big stumbling block. We're going to keep pushing through it and make this thing work.
I think it also says something about what people think that startups are actually selling. Let me say this. If you had a company, right? You run into a baby company, that baby startup, and their technology you believe is going to change the world fundamentally in the right direction, you are probably not going to tell them to fail fast. I think people just have a low vote of confidence in what startups produce, if I can be completely frank, because they don't think that they have or can have serious consequences, either positive or negative, on the social sphere or on how humans conduct their lives. So yeah, maybe if I was building like Salesforce 2.0, Jira 2.0, I would fail fast, sure. But I don't think with the mission that Symby has and with some other social impact startups that I really like, that they should fail fast. They should figure it out and do really well, because I think that they could put us in the right direction as a species, you know, rather than just being like Skype 2.0.
Yeah, that's a great caveat to carve out, and I think that's important because, like, you're right. If I'm going to build a better mousetrap, well, people already have mousetraps. If I fail to do that, whatever, I'll move on to the next thing. But if I'm going to, I can't think of a way to move the mousetrap metaphor further. I should have started something else.
You're going to augment mouse intelligence. Something
yes. Right. Then I'm not going to stop at the first issue, right? I won't stop until mice are running intelligence tests on us. So,
Stephen, we should build Mouse Utopia together. I've been thinking about what happened with the first experiments. I think we can do it right this time.
Ooh.
All right.
Wait, for realsies? Because that would be awesome.
Okay. Let me be clear. Maybe. What I've actually been thinking about is I read this very pseudo-silly Ig Nobel style paper that talks about how many generations it might take to breed dogs essentially toward human level intelligence, despite still not having the ability to speak, right? Equivalent human level intelligence. The problem with dogs, right, is that they have a long lifespan. Like, it's a more difficult process to run. You can't really have as many of them in one environment. You could take the same approach as that paper and apply it to mice. And you could probably build better intelligence metrics around what we consider an intelligence. Like, there are more mental dexterity measures for mice or bugs than there are dogs currently, which was really interesting to me. So anyway, I've been thinking about that. Like, should I, if Symby doesn't work out, I'm just gonna go rogue and buy some land in Sweden and do some like Mouse Utopia, but right.
Nice.
And make sure they don't cannibalize each other.
You won't be happy until they're trying to take over the world every night.
Oh, indeed. Should take 2 generations, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 generations is about how long ago Pinky and the Brain was on TV. So this works great.
Indeed.
Awesome. I'm trying to think of like what else to talk about here. Like, I mean, I don't know if we want to do more tech dive in, if we want to talk more about...
I mean, we've been going for over an hour. We can start wrapping up.
I suppose. This will be something everyone should know, or at least I can put you on the hot spot for. So we've got our company slogan, AI-driven insights, human-driven breakthroughs, and our name, Symby. Where does that come from?
Oh, girl, you're so messy. You are so... Oh, my God. You're getting termed. I'm sick of it. No, it's fine. Symby was a name that was ideated over a weekend, to be clear. It's pointing vaguely to the idea of symbiosis and knowledge synthesis. I got really into this. I'm a huge Russian literature nerd, which this is going somewhere. And in Russian philosophy, there's a philosophy that appears a lot in Russian literature called sobernost. And it's this idea of the perfect harmony of knowledge, right? So it's an early sort of look at the... If we had a theory of everything, it would probably be interdisciplinary. It'd probably be a bunch of stuff from a bunch of different disciplines coming together that didn't seem to make sense at first, but once you actually look at the outcome, it makes a whole bunch of sense. And so I've always been interested in the idea of a sobernost, and the closest thing that we have as an idea in English is like symbiosis. So Symby comes from symbiosis, knowledge synthesis. Are you happy,
That's awesome.
Stephen?
Yes, thank you.
You mentioned a theory of everything. Are you hoping to someday have Symby internalized a theory of everything?
Oh yeah, I am definitely on the Nobel Turing Challenge wave. So the Nobel Turing Challenge is this long-standing school of artificial intelligence that collects all of the research on basically having science solve science, be the end of knowledge for AI for science, basically. And so yes, I think a part of that is if there were to be a solve or a theory of everything, it would be developed by something that is an artificial intelligence rather than a collective of humans. So yes, let's have science solve science, basically.
I like it. You mentioned that Symby's platform is best suited for certain domains and less good at others. Which ones is it the best at? Which is the worst at, and why?
Did I say
If that's not interesting, we'll just close up at the last note. So.
Oh, okay. Did I say that?
I think it said that it's anything that we can turn their submission into something that can be easily transformed into like a computable model. Whereas, if I say that I did a study on 24 grad students at my, university for my psychology department, we can validate methodology, but the first problem there is you did it with 24 students, right?
Sure. Yeah, we can give you a review on that. So basically what I mean by that is if we're talking about replication and reproduction, until we have embodied systems, we can only go off of any sort of data, code, or information in the paper that you give it. So really that 2D knowledge, if you want to call it that. So where replication works best is definitely going to, again, be something where there is some sort of computational backing that we can actually look at. But for the review, it works pretty well across disciplines. There's definitely a skew in the direction of physics, math, statistics, and bio, for sure, just given the amount of data that we were able to collect for each of those. But for lesser published fields, like entomology, for example, it still does pretty damn well. It's just we can't replicate, a field experiment in entomology.
Right.
Yeah, we can do your replication protocol, but yeah, we can't actually do the replication or reproduction for you.
That makes sense.
I got a thing that I meant to take a note on to ask earlier, and I forgot, but then I saw my note. I'm going to ask it real quick if you don't mind, and then we can decide whether to keep it or not.
Sure.
How much of science is gated behind journals where you can't get at it right now? And is that a major issue?
You're thinking in the right direction. I won't call it a major issue because the solution is quite simple, and that's to partner with journals, which is what we currently do in the form of these enterprise contracts.
Okay.
And one of our goals, actually, is to very soon become sort of ubiquitous in the academic publishing space. And I think that, again, despite everything kind of being decentralized record right now, we can do that. There are not so many, and it's not so expansive that there are a finite number of these publishers in journals. We can get at all of them if we really put our best foot forward, or at least most of them. And I think that kind of solves that issue. So for us, you sign a contract with Symby, we don't say that we'll train on your data or fine tune anything with any sort of paywalled information, but we do now have access to that information on the synthesis end. So when we're actually building context to give users output, we will have access to that paywalled information from APS journals. Let's say we work with the American Physical Society. We have their information now that's now paywalled. So yes, it is kind of a problem because a large segment of useful information is paywalled, but for us, it's a matter of, okay, we need to just make that person a customer. And that hasn't been too much of a problem now. So
great.
Well, you'd think that I would have, having been here for 6 months and been thinking about doing this podcast for a while, I'd have thought of longer list of questions, but I think we've covered a lot. And the obvious question is, where do people go if they want to find out more? Well, SymbyAI.com exists and is there for you to look at. Is there anything that we didn't ask that you thought we'd touch on or that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think you guys touched on the usual. I did enjoy talking to you both.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great.
This was fantastic. Oh, and when it becomes public for people to be able to use it, that's also going to be at SymbyAI.com?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The app entrance will be at the same website, so yes.
Excellent. And
do we have a public date that we've committed to?
We do not have a public date that we've committed to. I've just been using the month of June.
Oh, good.
Very vaguely.
I like soft dates as well.
Indeed. We'll get back to you.
This doesn't help that my June is very busy, but we'll see.
Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, well. All right, cool. Well, Asha, thanks again for coming on and talking about Symby. I'm obviously biased. Eneasz, you can be honest. What do you think? Does this sound fun? Does this sound like nonsense?
No, this sounds really interesting and possibly revolutionary, depending on how it goes.
Awesome.
Thank you. Depending on how it goes, being the major.
Yeah.
I'm trying to disappoint.
If somebody wants to contact you, like a funder directly, how would they do that?
Oh, yeah. Best way to contact me is I have such a phonetically damning last name. Probably my email. So Livaudais at SymbyAI.com. Livaudais is LIVAUDAIS at SymbyAI.com.
Nice.
Say that 5 times fast.
And as always, we will have links in the show notes.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, great.
I was not going to try saying that 5 times fast. I'm just going to leave that challenge on the floor.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
I'll be honest. Today I learned how to pronounce your last name.
What did you think?
I think you've said it once or twice, but it's always been fast, not to the point where I'd ever confidently repeat it. So,
what did you think? Did you think it was Livaudais?
No, I mean, I could take a stab at it. I don't know how I would have said it.
Steve.
I'd probably not know which syllables to emphasize, but
Disappointed. I'm so disappointed.
Livaudais. Yeah, that's what I would say. Is that how you said it?
How would you say it?
Livaudais?
Livaudais.
Livaudais, not Livu. Okay.
That is, phonetically, one of the coolest last names ever. It's an exhortation to go and live your day, It's great.
Indeed. Literally, live your damn day. Yes, and have a fun time doing it.
Thanks again for coming on, and I obviously wouldn't be here if I didn't think this was an exciting project with amazing prospects, and I hope anyone listening is as enthused about it as I am. So,
hell yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
You bet.
I'll see
Thanks a lot.
you soon, Stephen. And nice meeting you, Eneasz.
Have a great day.
Yes, y'all too.
Eneasz, welcome back to the episode that we recorded, let's say something like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
It was a while ago, yeah.
It was. So this is following our interview with Ashia Livaudais, my CEO at SymbyAI, which I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say I think was one of our worst interviews ever.
Really?
I think what it is maybe I was feeling extra critical of myself because maybe I felt like I should have done a better job because, again, I worked there. I wasn't the one in the conversation representing the company, but I was de facto part of the representation of the company.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe I felt like I did poorly, not like we did bad.
Oh,
so
okay.
No, I'm not kicking myself. It's just reflecting on how it went.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is us reminding everybody who just heard the rest of the episode that it's been a while for us, and so we're here to talk about the stuff that we talk about at the back end of the episode, not less wrong posts because we're busy. So we'll get back to those eventually.
Yes, I have been promising this summer, so we got roughly 3 months or less to get back to them.
Easy, that's doable. Yeah, July will slow down for me.
Cool.
So, well, we always have time to plug the Guild of the Rose, which I'm happy to do here. They have a couple upcoming workshops. This will air in time, actually, for you to attend the Relax All of Your Muscles workshop, which will be on June 18th and June 20th. It's the second installment in their Be Well Tuned series. and they're awesome. Do you want to give the elevator pitch for the guild?
Yeah, the Guild of the Rose is a group that takes mostly rationalists, but you don't even have to be a rationalist. Like anyone who wants to up their rationalist game, and teaches them skills, how to apply them to real life, and importantly also provides an online social community where you can meet with other people and work on this together. And I think support each other is really important for me for learning anyway. Learning is always easier when I have other people to learn with and to feel like I'm connected with. And you're sorted into a stable cohort and stay together over a long period of time and develop relationships. It's a good program. I love them. They're there to help us be better rationalists and help the world in general raise its sanity waterline.
Yes, it's fantastic. Actually, when I was at Less Online, I gave a lightning pitch or a lightning talk for Guild of the Rose.
Nice.
I considered doing one for Symby, but literally no one else shilled for their startup or for their job.
Right.
And I don't want to be like the only guy, be like, hey, check out my company.
Yeah.
I did talk to lots of people about the company while I was there, but it was all informal.
Right.
But I wore the shirts and stuff and got some conversations going. But I couldn't bring myself to be the only person to go up there and start shilling for a startup. But this is different.
Yeah.
This is shilling for an actual rationalist thing, which seemed very appropriate for Less Online. So
yeah. And it's awesome to, I think maybe one of the things they focus on in some of their social skills workshops are things like hanging back a little bit and seeing what other people do and getting a feel for the vibes. And if nobody else is shilling their startup, you realize, oh, maybe that is not a thing that's done here, and therefore I won't do that.
Well put. I will pretend like it was that calculated rather than just me reading the room and feeling awkward.
I mean, that's kind of how that plays out in real life, right?
You're right. The capacity to read the room is something that has a skill level associated with it, which you can level up. So
yeah, our emotions do a lot of work for us because they're quick and they're effective and they're motivating.
That's right. Level up all your skills at gototherose.org.
Hell yes. Also link in the show notes.
That's right.
Oh, and also Stephen and me will be at Vibe Camp. So if you see us at Vibe Camp, come up and say hello if you'd like.
Yes.
I had a few people come up during Manifest and Less Online and said, hey, I like the podcast. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. Thank you. And, we chatted for like a minute and I was very happy. And I'm glad those interactions happened. So for the people who are listening that said that to me, thanks. It was great.
I had some similar experiences, and a lot of the best conversations I had were with just people. They weren't the presentations. They weren't the headliners. It was just people I met. I gave my contact info out to a few people, and I plan to stay in touch. It was a really, really great time. I would like to expound at that at length, but this isn't that episode. I think we'll probably do a whole thing on that at some point in the near future.
Sure, that sounds great.
But yeah, I'll be at Vibe Camp. Come say hi, and I plan to be basically going full hippie the whole time. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. All right, and finally, as you were saying, we have time to thank a patron in addition to the regular thanks we might get if people walk up to us and say thanks. We get some support on Patreon and on Substack from people, and that really helps us both to keep this thing going, to pay a few bills, and to feel appreciated. It means a lot to know that like some of you guys are willing to part with some money, and it feels good.
It really does. Man, I'm kicking myself. What I should have done is asked, because there were a handful of patrons that we met at Lighthaven at Less Online. I should have asked, hey, do you mind if I like mention your name that you were here at this conference, that we got to talk? And I didn't for any of them.
Oh, man.
But for those of you that I did talk to, you know who you are, and you guys were awesome. Thank you so much.
Hell yes. So this week in specific, we are thanking our patron, Awaclus. How would you pronounce it? Awaclus?
You get the hard ones. It's not every time. We do take turns. It just happened to line up this way. So
yeah, Awaclus. I recognize the name. You're often in the Discord. It is great to see you, and I feel so happy that you are helping support the show financially too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're an absolute badass. Thank you so much.
All right. I think that's everything. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all again in 2 weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks, man. See you then.
Bye.